Facebook is the world's most popular social media network. You might think the company's billion-plus users are its customers, but they're not. They and their personal information are the product that Facebook sells to its advertisers. That's the actual arrangement. At a recent conference, Facebook's former security chief warned that the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, has, quote, more data about what people want to do online than anyone else in the world. Zuckerberg may have the most information, but he wants still more data. Facebook is now using slick advertisements to try and convince you to put new, more advanced cameras inside your own home. Watch.
Happy Mother's Day.
It's so good to see you.
Are you just hanging out with the moms of other famous people?
What's up, Neil?
Hi, Venus and Serena's mom, Snoop Dogg's mom, Odell's mom. Am I in trouble?
No, honey, there's nothing wrong.
Although he does look thin.
He does look thin.
Thank you.
Come on over here and let us look at you.
Roger McNamee is a former advisor to Mark Zuckerberg and author of the book Zucked, and he joins us tonight. Roger, thanks very much for coming on. It looks from that ad that a lot of really cool, successful people are allowing Mark Zuckerberg to put surveillance cameras inside their homes. Should I do the same?
I would not recommend it, Tucker. I would not recommend it to anybody watching this show now. I mean, you
Why?
made the point correctly before.
Yeah.
Facebook is in the business of surveillance, right? They gather all the data they can about us, not just the stuff we put into the system, mind you. They track us wherever we go on the web, and not only that, they buy data from banks and credit card processors. They buy it from health and wellness applications. They buy it from our cellular carriers to find out where we are. They buy all this data so they can create a data avatar for us, and that, as you say, that makes us maybe not even the product. We may be the fuel for their business model.
Obviously, shooting footage of what's happening inside your home in your most private spaces, which is obviously the creepiest thing that's ever happened. But what happens to the data? Like, how do we know that data is secure? How do we know it won't be used against us? Why are we so trusting?
Yeah. Well, there's no reason we should be trusting. And the same thing is true of Amazon Alexa and Google Home and the other products that either listen to you or film in your home. It's crazy. I mean, the notion that we would let one of these things into our kitchen, much less our office or our bedroom. You know, right now there are no rules to protect us. All we have is the company's word for it that there'll be no abuse. And of course, these things are vulnerable to hacking. And the people who work there are vulnerable to all kinds of exploitation. And so my view is that we should stop all of these things and push back really hard. I mean, Tucker, I'm saying to every single person who's running for office, whenever I'm on your air or anybody else's, I'm just saying, we need to ask the simple questions. Why is it legal for there to be a third-party market in our personal data without our involvement or our permission?
Exactly.
Why should they be able to trade our financial data, our health data, our location data? Why should Google be allowed to scan our emails for their economic benefit? It's nuts. I mean, if they were at the Postal Service, they'd get arrested for doing that. And
Exactly.
I just think that there have been no rules for too long, and it's time to have some rules.
Facebook says it expects to be fined up to $5 billion for spying. I guess they shrug. And now they're facing a new investigation in New York for collecting users' email address books, your entire book. Tech giants aren't just monitoring your computer, though. They're also in your living room and even in your car.
This is a bit of a frightening find that as we continue to uncover these things of what technology knows about us, from the products we buy to the things we search for, to just how often you change the oil in your car. The average person is creating a binary breadcrumb trail that links together virtually everything we do, and big companies are making a fortune off of it. And it's not just big tech either. Car manufacturers in Detroit are buying and selling your personal information, like your location and your driving habits. Industry insiders think data from your cars could be worth as much as $750 billion by 2030. So who's making the money? Consumer rights groups, car manufacturers, even the folks who fix your car are all fighting over who owns your private information. But your car isn't the only thing tracking your every move. Amazon.com has a team of employees who listen to owners who talk to their Alexa smart device. Amazon says the humans are necessary to help the artificial intelligence understand us. This is how it starts. But some reports suggest that Amazon employees who listen in can see your location and at one point had access to your phone number. Silicon Valley is fighting against laws that would protect consumer privacy. A lobbying group actually representing companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon came out swinging against a bill in Illinois that would actually have stopped companies from recording private conversations unless you agree to it in a written policy. But it's not clear that fines and regulations will work on the larger-than-life tech companies. Facebook, as we discussed, already prepared to hand over billions of dollars worth of fines, admitting they set aside $3 billion for a settlement last quarter, a move that actually sent their stock soaring.
Microsoft has invested or partnered with at least 3 Chinese companies that develop AI and facial recognition technologies that are used by China's military and secret police. Microsoft was an early investor, for instance, in Deep Glint. That's a company that helps the Chinese government identify and imprison Uyghur Muslims, hundreds of thousands of whom have been sent with Microsoft's help indirectly to rot in concentration camps. So that's something they can feel good about. Then in 2017, Microsoft partnered with Yitu Technologies. That's another company that supplies facial recognition software to the Chinese fascists, which the Chinese government has used to crush the Uyghurs. And if you think that's creepy and disgusting, how about this? Microsoft has also partnered with a Chinese startup called HiData. HiData produces lip-reading technology. The company boasts that their software is 80% successful at English language lip reading. Think about that. It's good news for China's brutal police state, which is using this technology to further repress its own population. Thanks, Microsoft. Additionally, Microsoft researchers have worked with a Chinese military-run university on artificial intelligence research that could be used for surveillance and censorship. These papers were published in 2018 after it was known that China uses facial recognition to imprison Uyghur Muslims. One of the papers described an AI method for analyzing human faces. It's all very interesting, coming from the same company that refused to work with an American police department, which requested facial recognition tech and body cameras. Microsoft called that a human rights concern, but only when it happened in America. So we asked Microsoft for comment on all of this. It would be interesting to know the ethics behind these decisions. Microsoft refuses to help our country protect its own borders or police its own streets, and yet they're delighted to help the Chinese government commit some of the worst human rights abuses in the world and get rich doing it. What's the thinking here exactly? Well, Microsoft gave us a statement on all this, but didn't answer any of those questions. We're not surprised. It was just a few years ago that Utah Senator Mike Lee was a persistent critic of Google. In 2011, Lee grilled then CEO Eric Schmidt at a congressional antitrust hearing. Before joining the Senate, Lee pushed for a law that would have banned Google's largest source of revenue. That would be keyword-based advertising. Lee also egged on antitrust investigations of big tech and then accused the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, of going too easy on powerful companies, and good for him. But fast forward to today. Today, Mike Lee is one of Google's chief allies in Congress, maybe its biggest ally in the Republican Party. Lee has questioned whether Congress should even bother with antitrust investigations of tech companies. Lee has introduced legislation that would make it harder for the government to block corporate mergers. Lee has complained about the EU imposing fines on Google for its behavior. Lee even came on this program and told us that conservatives shouldn't worry about Google or other tech companies silencing conservative speech online. So what happened? Why the change? Well, it's possible that Mike Lee just woke up one morning and decided that his previous views had been wrong. Maybe. And yet evidence compiled by the Google Transparency Project suggests there may have been other factors at play here. Starting in 2013, Google spent millions of dollars rolling out its high-speed internet service, Google Fiber, in both Provo and Salt Lake City, Utah. In 2015, Google hosted a high-profile fundraiser for Lee at its Silicon Valley law firm. The fundraiser got a lot of attention, so Google backed out. But the fundraiser itself went ahead, and Lee received a sizable donation from Google's Political Action Committee. Ever since that fundraiser and the money he took, Lee's interest in having the FTC investigate tech companies seems to have completely evaporated. Google knows there's more, though, to politics than just donations. So in 2017, they hired a close ally of Lee's to manage the company's relationship with conservatives. The Internet Association, that's a trade group of which Google is a part, hired away Mike Lee's senior counsel from the Senate Judiciary Committee. Google also collaborated with the Heritage Foundation and the American Enterprise Institute, two of Washington's biggest conservative think tanks. The message they pushed was that Google and other tech monopolies are really something conservatives ought to celebrate. These companies are a triumph of the free market. We should be grateful for them. And worrying about their growing power or the ways they use that power is somehow socialist and un-American. Of course, Google itself is socialist and un-American, so the argument never really made sense. But Mike Lee bought it completely. When Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg came before Congress last year, Lee asked him only the softest of softball questions. And a month later, Facebook announced it would build a $750 million data center in Utah. A coincidence? Maybe it is a coincidence. Or maybe it's every bit as corrupt as it seems. We asked Senator Lee to come on tonight to explain what exactly happened. He declined.